Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Oliemi Adeosho, and we don't get tired. You cannot be tired of what you are passionate about. And tonight, we'll be looking at a very interesting topic, very strategic topic, understanding the 9-box grid tool and its application in talent management. Ladies and gentlemen, our facilitator is my friend, my brother, my professional colleague, Omobolade Adigun. And we've been on this conversation for like forever. But, scripture says that God makes all things beautiful in his time. And by himself, he decided to offer himself. And I am indeed grateful for my sake and for our collective sake. I would like to read his profile, ladies and gentlemen. Omobolade is an accomplished HR professional with over a decade of diverse experience across the fintech, FMCG, which means fast-moving consumer goods, e-commerce, retail, telecommunications, and business process outsourcing industries. He brings a unique blend of expertise in learning and development, performance management, talent management, succession planning, recruitment, and others. Throughout his career, has demonstrated a strong commitment to diverse organizational excellence and fostering a culture of continuous improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, he was the learning and talent manager at PZ Cussons, Nigeria, where he was responsible for designing and implementing innovative learning programs tailored to meet the specific needs of the organization, as well as optimizing performance evaluation process to maximize employee potential. Currently, he leads the learning and development team at Zone Payment Network Limited. Omobolade holds a master's degree in international human resource management from Rome Business School. He holds a bachelor's degree in pure and applied chemistry from Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, Ogbomoso. He's a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, a member of the Nigerian Institute of Training and Development, and also a member of the Learning Development Network International, for what will perhaps be one of the best sessions to date. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Omobolade Adigun as he teaches us on this topic, understanding the 9-box grid tool and its application in talent management. You have the floor, my brother.
Thank you very much, very much, Mr. Oliemi. And my bon, as I typically call you from time to time, anytime I need your help or anytime I want to share something with you. So thank you very much for that citation. And I could say you have just described me in a nutshell, and I really appreciate the accolades earlier on. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Please, can everyone confirm they can hear me very well?
Yes,
let me just do a bit of a mic check before I start ahead. All right. So good evening once again, everyone. As Mr. Oliemi has said, my name is Omobolade Adigun, and I'm an L&D professional, and I'm also a learner like you. So don't see me as the all in all or the CAC of learning and development or performance management or any of the others gamut of the HR functions. I'm just me, and I'm just a curious learner and a problem solver, like I tell my other colleagues. So today we'll be looking at understanding the 9-box grid tool and its application in talent management. And without wasting much of our time, because we actually have like about 30 slides in the deck to cover. I wouldn't want to waste each of our time. I would really just like to go straight into it so that we can have enough time and room for questions as well. So let us go straight into it. So this evening, we're going to be looking at the agenda first. So the agenda basically for this session is for us to actually know what the 9-box grid is all about, because it's a recent thing that is coming up in a lot of performance conversation in organizations these days. And I felt, oh, this is even the very good time for me to actually have a webinar on this. So we're going to be looking at what the 9-box grid is all about, its definition and its origins, how it even came to be. And we're also going to be looking at something we call the performance and potential axis, vis-a-vis the assessment criteria. We're also going to be looking at interpreting the 9 segments, which are basically the talent categories. We'll also talk about the 9 box for succession planning, that is future leaders, applying the 9 box in talent management, benefits of using the 9 box, best practices and considerations, common pitfalls, and finally, key metrics that can be combined with the 9 box grid, and we'll also be able to take question and answers. So without wasting much of our time, let us get straight into it. Initially, I had my citation here already, but since the convener had already spoken about it, there's no need for me to go over that again. So let's just move straight into the session objectives. So for the session objectives for today, by the end of the session, each one of us, including myself, will be able to explain the purpose, structure, and origins of the 9 box grid as a talent management tool. We'll be able to differentiate between the performance and potential dimensions, including how each is assessed and populated. We would also look at interpreting the 9 segments of the grid and identifying what they reveal about your workforce capability and readiness. Then we will also look at how to apply the 9 box grid to talent management practices such as performance reviews, development planning, and succession management. Then we'll evaluate the pros and the cons and common pitfalls of using the 9 box grid and describe strategies for effective calibration and talent reviews. Then we're also going to look at designing actionable steps for embedding the 9 box grid into the organization's talent review and succession planning processes. So let's dive into it. So first and foremost, I would like to ask a question now, and I want us to, I don't know if the anchor for this session can actually give people opportunity to just tell me what it, because I know some people have actually heard about the 9 box grid before. I just want you to tell me what you think it is. What do you think a 9 box grid is? Because a lot of people have been throwing that word around lately these days. So if you feel you know something about it, just say it. What is the 9 box grid? If anybody wants to drop a chat, I am also cool with that. I think I can see the chat. Okay. Someone said, oh, okay. I don't mind if you can drop a chat too, if that's fine by you. I'm cool with that. I'm just going to give like the next 30 seconds for anyone who is willing to talk or say something. Okay, if nobody is willing to talk, no problem, it's fine. I can just go straight into it. So basically, the 9 box grid is actually a tool for managing talent within an organization. And let us go straight into what it actually is here. So a 9 box grid is actually a 3x3 matrix mapping each employee's performance against potential. So you have your performance on one axis and you have the potential on another axis. So each cell box corresponds to a talent category, right? So let us remember our typical graph we use for plotting graph in mathematics or physics or even chemistry back in the day when we were in secondary school. So you have your performance on this axis and you have your potential on the horizontal axis, right? So everybody's performance and potential is plotted within that graph, which means that in that graph, we are going to have a total of 9 boxes, and each box corresponds to a category called a talent category, right? Then also, let us look at the origins. Where did it come from? So basically, it was developed in the 1970s by executives from 2 companies, General Electric and McKinsey. And they developed it as a business framework first. It was a business framework basically to identify the strengths of organization. But later on, other professionals saw that we can actually incorporate this into HR, and they adopted it by HR for talent reviews, basically, right? Cool. Then basically the purpose of the 9 box grid is to align talent management initiatives to business goals by identifying which employees contribute most today and who can grow into bigger roles. So basically what we are trying to say is that We understand that in an organization, there are different people, different employees with different mindsets, different motivations, and different dynamics, right? So how do we align talent management initiatives to business goals? So that was what birthed the 9-box grid, because it allowed organizations to able to determine where they can invest money into, because it is not everybody that you want to train the same way. There are some employees you just train them once a year. There are some employees that go for often up to as high as 6 trainings in a year. So how do you know which employees do you even want to do that for? So that was the problem that the 9-box grid tool was solving for talent management professionals in HR. Then also we're going to be looking at its basic use. And its basic use was basically used in performance management and succession planning to segment staff for tailored development. Yeah. Now, let's quickly take a look at the performance dimension. Like I said, the performance dimension is on the vertical axis, while the potential dimension is on the horizontal axis. So with that in mind, the performance we are talking about talks about current job effectiveness of an employee, and it is typically rated as low, medium, or high, based on how well employee meets targets and role requirements. The next thing is that it is example based, meaning that if you want to say, okay, an employee has low performance, there has to be an agreed criteria that universally across the organization talks about what low performance is all about. And for example, we have here an employee that fails to meet their target, right? Then moderate means that an employee that meets some of their goals or some of their targets, but they still have some targets or goals not met. Then while employees that are probably categorized as high performing or high performance means that, oh, they actually exceed their requirements or their targets on the job. They go above and beyond, so to say. Okay, so it is important to use objective metrics. Examples, when we say objective metrics, meaning metrics that are quantifiable, that people can see, that is not vague, is not subjective. It is not something you can just say, oh, by intuition. It is quantifiable data, empirical data that people can see that, oh, okay, this is what high performance looks like. This is what moderate performance looks like. This is what low performance looks like. And the objective metrics we're talking about includes sales. Of course, if somebody has been able to bring, maybe if they've been able to increase the sales of an organization probably by 10% or 5%, that is objective. KPIs, project outcomes, and the likes. Do you understand? Or clear appraisal skills to keep ratings fair and consistent. So what some organizations do basically is, at the end of an appraisal period, each employee has an appraisal score, typically ranging from 1 to 5. So that score is your performance for that year. So if an employee has probably like 3 out of 5, then we say, oh, okay, the employee falls within a category called meets expectation. 4 is outstanding, while 5 is exceptional, meaning high performance, right? Cool. Then also, we have what we call calibration. Now, in performance management, calibration basically talks about a few group of senior leaders coming together to assess performance of individual employees compared to their peers in other departments or in other functions within the same organization. So clear calibration across managers prevent ambiguity. So it means that if your line manager has rated you unfairly, positively, maybe, okay, your actual performance is looking like a 2/5, but because you have a good working relationship with your line manager, the person has rated you a 4 out of a 5. Other managers can come together in the calibration to say, no, we don't think this person is actually at this level, but at this level. Do you understand? So a consensus has to be agreed or has to be reached before that is done inside the performance dimension. So everyone must agree on what counts as high versus what counts as low performance. So there's no middle ground. Then also, during duration of performance data that is used for the computation of the performance dimension in the 9-box grid tool is usually the last 2 to 3 years, or according to best practices, is the last 2 performance cycles. because of course we understand the recency bias, because an employee has been performing poorly for the past 3 to 4 years, but suddenly picked up maybe in the last year or last 2 years. That might point to an hidden issue or a hidden problem somewhere else that hasn't been detected. So such performance may not necessarily be rated as a high or a low. But then again, it just basically means that for the performance dimension, the typical duration of data that is used is usually the last 2 to 3 years. Okay, that being explained and said, we can also now look at potential dimension. So what is potential in 9-box grid? Before we move into it, of course, potential means the innate ability to do something. It is innate, meaning that, okay, you have not yet done it, but from what we are seeing on the outside, we believe you can do it, right? So when we talk about potential, it basically talks about an employee's capacity or readiness for future roles or increased responsibilities. Please let us take the word capacity and readiness, because some people can have the capacity, but they don't have the readiness. And some people actually have the readiness, but they don't have the capacity. Okay, so common categories also includes low, which means fully exploited. And this talks about a situation where an employee has already they've plateaued in their journey throughout in the organization. They can't do anything else. They are just doing the best they can at the position where they are currently at, or they are content at the current level. The moderate basically says, oh, they can grow in current role, meaning that, okay, on that role where they are, you can actually give them more responsibilities or stretch them for further development. Then I basically talks about ready for a bigger challenge or a leadership track. Then the next thing is that potential is also assessed by indicators as learning agility. Learning agility is very important in 9-box grid, because oftentimes organizations promote people and they feel, oh, the person should be able to learn and adapt quickly in that role. But you have not considered that employees' learning agility, because it's the learning agility that will tell us, oh, how fast can you quickly learn something and grow, or and apply that thing you have learned and grow. So when you promote somebody without measuring their learning agility, it's more or less like you are setting that person up for failure. Because if that person gets into that role, they don't quickly learn what they quickly need to learn, then that means their performance will start falling down. Another critical indicator we look at for potential is ambition. How ready are you to grow? So ambition is that readiness that we are talking about earlier. How is are you somebody that is ambitious? Are you eager for more things, right? Then leadership traits. How are you able to lead people, even in your current role? There's usually a saying we say that you don't need a title to be a leader. So you don't necessarily even have to have leadership titles before you are able to demonstrate leadership traits. Then also, we also look at your skill gaps. What are the skill gaps in this person? Are the skill gaps something we can easily close, let's say in the nearest 1 to 2 years, or 2 to 3 years, or 3 to 5 years, or there are gaps that probably can't be even closed at all? So it is usually measured, potential dimension in the 9-box grid is usually measured using data from the 360-degree feedback. So basically, the 360-degree feedback is an assessment tool that basically deploys a survey to all round an employee. So we want to look at your uplines, your direct line manager, your peers, and your downlines. And sometimes they even go as far as reaching out to customers, especially for employees that are outward facing, employees that face customers on the outside, and also aptitude test and also input from manager. So those are the indicators that point to an employee potential. Then we also use multiple sources. We don't just listen to one person. And that's the beauty of 360-degree feedback, because in a 360-degree feedback, you have at least 3 separate groups of people. At least 3 separate groups of people that would be giving feedback about the person's potential. So it will also reduce bias. It is data driven, and it also makes potential ratings more reliable, so to say. Okay, so let's now take a look at the picture on the screen. So we have a graph-like image thanks to Academy to Innovate HR for this picture because I really love it, especially with the color coding. So we can look at we can see the 9 boxes in this graph. And the first one we are going to be looking at is the observe or terminate group. We usually call them underperformers or bad hires because these are employees within the organization that have very low potential and very low performance. So they don't even show any form of readiness or capacity that they can do better or they can improve. And at the same time, their current performance is also very low. So those are the employees we categorize into the box called observe or terminate or called underperformers. Then we have the inconsistent performers who actually have a moderate potential but low performance as well. Then we have employees who are in the untapped talent. They have a very high potential for more, but their current performance is low. Then we have effective performance. These are employees with moderate performance but low potential. Then we have core, we are the reliable team players. In fact, statistics have said that 60 to 70% of every employee in the workforce will fall within the core, the reliable team players. So they have moderate potential and moderate or medium performance on the job. Then we also have develop and stretch, which are the high potentials. These are employees with moderate performance or medium performance, then very high or high potential. Then we have the trusted professionals who have a very high performance but low potential. We have strong contributors who have moderate potential and high performance. Then we have the exceptional talent who have very high performance and high potential as well. So we will be breaking these segments down and we are going to be treating them in clusters. So, and as the session goes on, you will see the clusters I have grouped them into so that we don't waste our time and start treating each box independently, but we've clustered them depending on the semblance in their action plans and how to better manage them within the organization. So the first segment we are going to be looking at, of course, obviously, is the observe, terminate group. So basically, we said that these are employees who score low on performance and potential. If they stay too long in the organization, they become icebergs. Icebergs are typically those chunks of ice on the sea that form when the temperatures are below 0 degrees, and they usually cause problems for oncoming vessels and ships. So icebergs, and they can threaten the success of the organization. And that's basically the truth, because if you're not careful, they will rub off, their behavior and their attitude will rub off on other performers in the organization. Okay, so moving on from that, let us now look at the action plan. How do we even manage this group of people? So the first thing you need to first of all try and understand is, what is the roadblock? What are their issues? Why are they performing poorly? Because oftentimes, I said earlier that we call them bad hires, because ideally, you should have been able to spot an employee that does not even have a potential to grow, even at the stage of recruitment. But then again, we want to go a step further and say, okay, let us even understand what is causing the roadblock. So understand what may cause the low performance, but don't over-invest in these people and lose focus on other employees who do perform well. Because the major problem of employees within this category is the fact that they can demotivate performers within your organization, except employees that are high performing, like, oh, I've been doing my best all these years, but this guy is just here not pulling his weight and nothing is being done about it. That thing actually demotivates your performance. So what you want to do is, first of all, identify why they are performing poorly, but don't over-invest in them. So these are the employees, probably you just send them on one training a year, or probably we don't say don't train them at all. Because then again, we are trying to say, well, people can't change. People can change. Do you understand? But don't over-invest in them. Invest in them moderately or minimally. The next thing is that reassign the individual. So let's even say that, okay, maybe the current team they are in, they are probably suffering from toxic leadership, or probably the manager doesn't even coach them well or mentor them well on the job. better performance. So you may reassign the individual. So if you now reassign the individual and the poor performance still continues, then obviously there's something wrong with that employee. So we've said that discuss with the employee to see if there's a more appropriate assignment where they can put their skills to better use. Some people don't like numbers. They don't like roles that probably would involve a lot of numerical reasoning. So if you put an employee there, they will definitely struggle. So the best thing for you to do as an HR professional, as an HR manager, is to probably work with that employee to see that, okay, is there any department within the organization that you feel you can do much better? And if the employee says, yes, I think I like customer service, I like interfacing with people, I like talking to people, okay, no problem, that's fine. You can reassign the employee. And if performance then improves exponentially within the next 6 to 12 months, then you obviously show, oh, okay, I've been able to change a potential bad hire into a more positive or a more effective hire within the organization. Then the next thing in the action plan for employees who are in the observe terminate category is to create an exit plan. So if performance does not now improve, you have reassigned the employee, performance still has not improved, then you need to create an exit plan. And as I said, if the first two options don't work, help the person find a role that suits them better. Can someone confirm if they can hear me? Mr. Yemi, please, can you hear me? Cool. Okay, fantastic, great. I think people can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, sir. Okay, so let's just go straight into it. Apologies. I had to change my internet because the previous one, I got kicked out from the previous one. Okay, let me just go ahead and maximize my screen. Okay, so we were talking about the action plan for the employees within the observe or terminate category of the 9-box grid tool. So we've said that if the first two options doesn't work for that or for those group of employees, you need to create an exit plan to help the person find a role that suits them better outside the organization. So terminating an employee in this category is not bad because you're just helping them find a purpose outside the organization that better suits them. And for this situation, we usually tell HR managers, document things. have documentary evidence to support their poor performance. So don't just use more word of mouth, send emails. You can also place them on a performance improvement plan to try and see if they can improve, right? But for example, we have already said that potential is low. So if potential is already low, then that means they are not even showing any willingness or readiness to improve. So you might not even need to waste your time or waste your resources with a PIP. You just need to create an exit plan for them. And that's that for the observe terminate category. So another category we are going to be looking at next is the employees who have the potential to be great but are not performing up to standard, which are employees we say that they are within the group called observe dilemma. Then observe effective, who are employees who perform well enough to stay but don't have enough potential to go further, right? And these are the employees that we call observe. You can say that observe is actually in their two names, observe dilemma and observe effective, right? Okay, cool. So the first thing you want to do for these guys is create a performance improvement plan. So a performance improvement plan that you are creating is basically to help them improve their performance. For example, the observe dilemma guys have low performance, but they have moderate potential, whilst observe effective have moderate performance, but low potential, right? Cool. So you want to create a performance improvement plan to make sure that to clearly define what good performance looks like, so the employee knows what is expected of them. Then you also need to have monthly check-ins and evaluation, because like we said, you need to observe them so that their good performance does not become bad performance, and somebody that also has moderate potential does not have, because you can actually relapse. People can relapse, so you can actually be and that's why regular talent reviews is something we clamor for within organizations. So the fact that an employee falls within a category this year does not mean they will be in that category for eternity. People can relapse, people can if I even in Christianity, we have people that actually backslide. So being in a particular box is not final. Failure is not final, success is not final, right? So monthly check-ins and evaluation are very critical to this group of employees, and they will also benefit from it, from having a structured plan and feedback, especially from the HR manager and also their line managers as well, to tell them this is what good performance looks like, this is what we expect to see in you, to actually be convinced that, oh, okay, you are an employee that is ready to be a talent within the organization. Okay, so the next thing is you also need to create an exit plan, because if these employees do not improve within the next 6 months to a year, you can help them find another role outside the organization that better suits them. Because if you have employees with moderate potential but low performance within the organization, their poor performance can rub off on other people. Like I said earlier, when you allow employees with low performance within the organization to stay, they can demotivate and demoralize employees that are performing well in the organization. So that's basically that for employees within this second category, which is observe group, but we have them in two types. We have the observe dilemma and they have observe effective. So the third category we're going to be looking at is the one we call the develop and trusted professional. The develop and trusted professional are employees who score high in potential but low in performance. So it means that we can see the readiness and capacity for them to go above and beyond, but their current performance is nothing to write home about, right? Then the trusted professional are employees who perform very well on the job. They do the job well, they meet targets, they crush goals, but they don't have the potential to grow in their current role. So how do you manage these guys? So the action plan for this group is, for the developed guys, you continuously monitor performance, look for both improvements and stability, then also solid performance within the next 12 months. Because like we said, we want to see if performance is actually going to improve. So you continuously monitor them. So you might want to set things in motion, probably with the line manager, probably like a feedback loop to constantly keep HR abreast of their performance. If you then suddenly now discover that, oh, there's actually like an upward rise in performance, then you might then need to recalibrate them to now find out, oh, okay, what was responsible for the initial poor performance, so that they don't relapse back into that stage. And you also want to find that performance sustainable. Then the next one is communicate expectations. Let them know what is expected of them in their roles, because oftentimes most people that are performing poorly in organizations don't even know what is expected of them, because some organizations don't even have effective and efficient KPIs. Some KPIs are vague, that they don't even know what to do. So if you are able to break down the KPIs and say, okay, this is what we expect from you, this is what you need to deliver within this quarter, and this is the level of quality we expect it to be done at, then you have been clearly able to communicate expectations to them. Then create an exit plan. If performance does not improve within a year, there's no point having it's like, let me use an analogy of football. A player that does well in training but performs poorly on the day of the match, their training performance is potential. Their performance on the job or on the match is the actual performance. So if you are training well, if you are doing well in training, but you're always getting to the field of play and you're performing poorly, the club might have no other choice but to sell that player. So create an exit plan. So if performance does not improve within a year, help the person find a role that suits them better outside of the organization, right? So the next group we'll now be looking at is the trusted professional. So the trusted professionals are employees that are already performing very well in their current organization, and that's why we call them trusted professional. So you can always believe in these guys that, oh, they would always perform any day, anytime. So one of the things you need to do is keep them happy. Raise their salary nominally, but don't over reward them. So you might want to probably apply 10-15% raises for them, maybe every year of their consistent poor performance, but don't over reward them and probably give them like 30 to 40 or to 50% salary increment, because if you do, you might probably incur what we call the Peter problem, which I'm also going to look at next in the next bullet point. So help them future-proof their career. So how do you help an employee future-proof their career? You let them realize that, oh, you're actually doing very well here right now, but you need to be able to do more. You need to be able to imbibe that elastic ability to be able to take on more, so that they are able to move from a position of low potential to probably moderate potential or even high potential. Remember, their performance is already solid. It is their potential we have issues with. So these are employees that they will just tell you, oh, just pay me my salary, let me do my job very well, and let me go home. Some people will even tell you, I don't even mind even go and being the gate man, but just ensure that my salary gets paid as I went due, and I will do the best of my ability. Do you understand? So you want to help them future-proof their career that, okay, what if you don't find a job here again? You need to be able to improve your skills and broaden your talent profile, so that even when you go out of this organization, you can even be able to do much more than what you're currently doing here. So that's how you help them future-proof their career. Then last but not the least, do not promote them to avoid invoking the Peter principle. And in the Peter principle, every employee tends to rise to his level of competence, because oftentimes people believe that, oh, when you promote them into the role, they will grow into the role. That's one of the major mistakes a lot of HR professionals make when promoting people. Okay, he's doing well on his current job, but has he shown the readiness and the capacity to do more than what they are currently doing? We've seen situations whereby you promote an employee internally, and when they get into the role, they started performing poorly. And when you try to engage them to find out the reason for poor performance, they'll tell you, well, I wasn't even ready for the promotion. I was just content with what I was doing before. So you don't promote them. And even if you want to promote them, you need to probably engage with them to find out if there's any iota of willingness or readiness to actually do much more than what they are currently doing. And that's that for this group of employees. The next group we're quickly going to be talking about are the core and develop or stretch group. I said earlier that the core represents a group, the largest group within the workforce. In fact, statistics say that between 55 and 70% of your workforce falls within the core group. And these are employees that usually fall within 3/5 appraisal ratings. I'm sure for performance management guys on the call, they understand what we know as the bell curve, where we have the large majority of maybe 60 to 64% of the organization within the center of the curve. And these are employees with moderate potential and moderate performance as well. And that's why we said that core are reliable performance with potential to grow further. And your priority is to what? Move them into the next group to the right. So you are trying to move employees within the core group to the stretch or the develop group, whilst you want to move employees within the stretch or develop group into the stretch group. Remember, we said develop or stretch group are those scoring high in potential but average in performance. So they have a high potential, meaning they have a high level of readiness and capacity to do more, but their current performance is moderate. So that means that you can actually stretch them and move them into the stretch pool, which is actually a region of high performance and high potential. So the action plan to manage these two groups of employees is to set clear role expectations. Communicate clearly what is expected of them in their roles. So you as either an HR business partner or as an HR manager, you need to clearly communicate what is expected of them in their roles and conduct regular check-ins to ensure they remain satisfied and engaged in their roles. Because you remember already, they are the reliable performance. So they're already doing what they are employed to do. But you see that they actually have the capacity to do more, right? So that is why we are trying to move them into the next box. And that's why you are actually setting clear role expectations for them. Clearly communicate what is expected of them in their roles and conduct regular check-ins. Then the next thing is also provide job exposure and training. So for employees that have already shown that they are willing to take more, provide job exposure for them. So you might do what we call job shadowing, job rotations. You might pencil them down for relief duties or relief assignments. When the head of the department is going on leave, pencil them down for relief roles, right? And that's why in some organizations, some employees actually have development plans that circle around relieving people across the department they are currently operating in. So help them get experiences using such job rotations, enlargement, additional training, and on-the-job learning, because already they have shown the willingness and readiness to do more. Then last but not the least is provide coaching. Arrange peer or progressional coaching to address performance barriers during the one-on-one sessions, and don't forget to recognize and celebrate achievements. Of course, like we said, they are already part of the reliable performance within the organization. So you need to also constantly reward them and celebrate them so that they don't feel demoralized and probably move into a region of low potential. Okay, so that's that with this group. Then the second to the last group is actually a group called the stretch or develop. So they are already contributing a lot in your organization because these are employees with high performance but moderate potential. So the key here is to keep them happy, engaged, and ready to take on future roles. In fact, these guys are part of the group that will form the core of your succession pool. This is the pool where you go and pick potential successors from that will succeed leaders within your critical roles. So let us look at the action plan to manage these guys. Motivate them frequently, regularly acknowledge their contributions, support their career aspirations, discuss with them around, oh, what do you want to be? What next? How do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Those are the kind of questions that can guide that conversation. What do you want to be? Or it might look very, very germane and very miniature, but then again, these are questions that will actually point you in their direction to actually know where they actually want to grow into. foster growth potential, offer challenging assignments or job rotation to also help them keep engaged. Because another thing about these guys is that they might get bored easily. Oh, they've been performing on the job for so long a time, but they have shown they have a moderate willingness to do more. So if they don't see anything challenging, their current job becomes monotonous for them, and they might go and look for that challenge outside the organization. So you might want to stretch them. That's why I say stretch or develop. Stretch them to make them not feel not make them feel like their job is now becoming monotonous. And then last but not the least is offer mentorship and training. So you might want to pair these employees with mentors. So you can actually get mentors within the organization or even outside the organization. In my past experience, we've actually done that where we paired current employees with with other people outside to offer executive coaching and mentorship, mentoring activities to these employees. And they also help them develop their professional journey and provide opportunities for them to upskill and achieve their goals. So this is the action plan to manage these employees within this group, right? And last but not the least is actually the employees that are in the stretch category. And these guys, they are what we call the stars, or the the future leaders for the organization. So these are your high performers who are capable of taking on new roles. They also play a critical role in succession management. They also form a large chunk of the succession pool of any organization. So this is where you go and pick talents, successors from, to actually map to critical roles for the organization. So the action plan for them includes offer challenging assignments, give your top performers important roles in crucial projects or external opportunities to challenge them and enhance their skills, check in regularly and show appreciation. The checking regularly is also to ensure that you keep engaging them, frequently engage them, because in my experience and also according to research, the number one top driver of poor performance is employee disengagement. When an employee feels like they don't belong, that is a recipe for disaster of poor performance. So when you frequently engage them, it ensures that they know that, oh, you are seeing them, you are seeing their contribution to the organization, and they also feel seen and motivated, right? So it also makes sure that they are satisfied and they acknowledge their crucial contributions to your organization. Provide mentorship and networking opportunities for them as well, by pairing them with senior members for guidance and create networking avenues with top performers and leadership. Right? So this is the action plan to manage these guys. And like we said, they are your stars. They are the stars of the organization. And these are oftentimes your employees that demonstrate what we call OCB, organizational citizenship behaviors, because they have high potential, their performance is high as well. So they're like models of the organization. So moving on from here, we'll be looking at something that I think I'll need us to talk about, and that's basically, who is a talent? I would have loved people to share their contributions. I don't know if people on the call would be able to type in something, but because of our time, I wouldn't want to waste much time on this. Who is a talent? Because oftentimes every HR wants to believe that everybody in the organization is a talent, but that is actually not true. That is actually not true. But who is a talent within the organization? I want to leave the floor open. I think I have some comments here. Okay. There's nothing talking about that. Who is a talent? Okay, I think I have a comment already. Okay, somebody said high performer. Somebody said potential high flyers. Fantastic. Ijoma, thank you for that. Etini, thank you for that as well. Okay, so let me respond to I'm responding to my own question. So basically, a talent is an employee within the, okay, I also have another comment now. Let me quickly read that. Somebody say high performer, high potential. Okay, Fantastic. Thank you, Tini. I don't know your name, but your your Monica reads iPhone, an outstanding employee. Okay, fantastic. So a talent is basically an employee who has a high performance on the job and also a high potential on the job. But relating that to the 9-box grid segments that we just treated, are we then saying only employees that are within the stretch segment are only talents? Because they're only the ones that actually have high performance and high potential. But you know what? I'm not going to answer that question just yet. We are still going to go along in the session, and we are going to actually do a further deep dive to understand who a talent is and why talent management team is always on the hunt for these guys within the organization. So let us move on. So let's first of all look at the 4 benefits of the 9-box grid. So this list is not exhaustive, but I've just been able to come up with these 4 key benefits. And the first one is that it identifies key talents. That's the number 1 purpose of the 9-box grid. Because that $1 million question that I asked us the other time, who is a talent, is a question that keeps CEOs and even HR managers and HR directors awake every night. Identify key talent. So one of the benefits of the 9-box grid is that it identifies your key talent. It highlights high performers with high potential for development and promotion. Leaders quickly see who should be fast-tracked into critical roles. So remember what I said, these guys form the bulk of the employees within your succession pool, right? So their development is fast-tracked. They are the people organizations can invest in to go for management programs at Lagos Business School, at Rome Business School, at London Business School, at Warwick School of Business, right? Because management is trying to fast-track them and prepare them for leadership roles in the future. Then another benefit of the 9-box grid is that it creates a simple and visual format of your workforce. So on a day-to-day basis, you can see where you need to do work. Okay, I need to move my observed dilemma. I need to move them into core. I need to move my core to either stretch and develop or maybe develop and stretch. So you are constantly thinking of strategies to improve these guys. Then it also gives executive a simpler way to see your talent dashboard, because when people say, oh, talent dashboard, they just come with metrics of, oh, okay, these are our development plans. We have so number of talents in this pool. We have diversity ratio of 67 to 33%. Sometimes these are too much data for the executives. But when you present a 9-box grid to them and you say, oh, okay, 10% of our workforce are in the bad hire zone, 25% are in the star zone, and probably another 65% are in this zone. It gives them a pictorial representation of how the workforce looks like. Then another beautiful benefit of the 9-box grid is that it aligns expectations. It helps to align expectations. So it requires leadership to define what high performance and high potential is versus what low performance and low potential mean. So it allows the organization to build consistency. So our low performance last year is not different from our low performance this year. So talent, the 9-box grid has actually solved that problem for an organization. Then it also links to planning, because in workforce planning or strategic workforce planning, you need to be able to project your future talent needs. Oh, how many managers are we even going to need in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years? How many senior managers are we going to need? How many directors are we going to need? Are we going to be needing rather? So the 9-box grid also allows you to look at, oh, what do we even have in our current pool of employees? How many of our employees can we even say we can fast track into leadership roles? So that is another benefit of the 9-box grid. I have a comment here. I don't know. Okay, so someone said a talent is actually any individual with exceptional skills, abilities, and potential to contribute. Thank you for that, Ginika. She also went further to say a talent is any individual who is a high performer and achievement has potential for growth and development, has the ability to drive business results, is a strong fit with company culture, and finally unique. Fantastic, fantastic. This is great. Thank you very much, Ginika. You've just echoed my thoughts again, and also to summarize everything that I've said earlier. The talent is an high performer and high potential employee, but we are not only also looking at potential and performance in terms of empirical data. We also want to look at people that are ready to go above and beyond, even within their current roles as well. So moving on from there, let's now take a look at applying the 9-box grid in talent management. And I've broken down this process into 4 major steps. And the first step we're going to be looking at is determine your target. The second step is define performance criteria. The third step is define potential criteria. And the fourth target is validate and visualize data. So let us go straight into it. So the deep dive begins. So what do we mean by when we say determine your target? Oftentimes, you don't necessarily need to apply the 9-box grid to the entire workforce, because doing that might be time consuming, might be strenuous, and also it might also be a waste of resources, right? So rather than applying the grid universally across the organization, focus on roles where it will be most impactful. And this will ensure that the effort you put into this process can help your organization achieve your goals. And I've broken down the groups that you can focus on. And we have 3 basic groups that you can focus on to use the 9-box grid. The first group are employees of function critical to the success of your organization. So I'm sure the next question somebody will ask is, so how would I know the roles and functions that are critical to the success of my organization? So the roles that you want to look at are roles within the value chain of your organization. And I think I want to take a step further and say, okay, what is a value chain of an organization? So basically, the value chain is, oh, somebody said I'm muted. Sorry, can everyone hear me? I don't know if I'm currently muted. Okay, I'm not muted. I think it's someone else. Okay, so roles or functions critical to the success of your organization. So we've said that these are roles that are within the value chain. So look at your organization critically and look at the entire process of delivering value to your customer. So let's say you're working in a manufacturing in a manufacturing organization, and your organization produces, let's say, cereals. So that means your value chain will be from farming of maize or corn in the farm, transporting the maize and the corn from the farm to the factory.
You are muted. We can't hear you. You are muted. Please check your device. You are actually muted, please.
I'm not muted, actually. I think somebody has actually confirmed that they can hear me. 2 people, in fact.
Ginika, not muted. I can hear you. You're not muted. I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Ginika has also said they can hear me. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Please check your network and all right, fantastic. So when we are looking at a value chain of an organization, value starts to the end process of delivering value to your customer. So I made reference to a company that produces cereals as an example, and that process starts from farming of the corn, harvesting the corn, processing it into whatever you process it to make a cereal. So that means transporting it from the farm to the factory, from producing and manufacturing it to finishing, then to marketing, to sales. That entire process till it gets to the table of the end consumer. That chain is your value chain. So in an FMCG now, if you want to critically look at that chain, the roles we'll be looking at are, we want to look at head of logistics, inbound logistics, because inbound logistics is the department responsible for the receiving and procuring materials from suppliers, right? From the suppliers that will supply the organization. So head of logistics. We also want to look at procurement. Procurement are the ones that even go and look for farmers that have viable and good maize and corn that they can supply the organization. So you might want to look at head of procurement. So I'm already identifying critical roles within that value chain. Then also we want to look at head of manufacturing. Okay, when the supplies and raw materials get to the factory, who is responsible for converting it from basic maize and corn into finished product? So the head or director of manufacturing is also a critical role. That's critical role number 3. Then we have outbound logistics. In some organizations, they don't actually segment into inbound, outbound. But if you're a large organization, you can have the luxury of, inbound, then outbound. Inbound is basically in charge of receiving the raw materials. Outbound is in charge of taking the finished product to distributors, wholesalers, and retailers, right? Then you also want, how do we now make people know we produce this fantastic product? Marketing comes into play. So the head of marketing or the director of marketing is also a critical role for the organization. Then how do we now convert this very fantastic product into money? Sales then come into play. So your head of sales or director of sales or your national sales manager also becomes a critical role, because these are the people that oversee these processes for the organization. Then after that, you also, we've now gotten money. Now we've now converted the produce or the product into money. How do we then manage the money? Then you want to have your CFO or your head of finance or your director of finance will also become a critical role, right? Then how do we then manage our reputation out there, especially when customers have feedback for us? Then maybe you want to have head of customer service or head of client relations as a critical role. So I have identified about 8 to 9 critical roles, but that is not the only ones. You might want to go a step further again to look at other roles within that function that are also critical to the day-to-day running of the organization, especially as it relates to the entire value chain for your organization. So the first group of people you want to look at is roles or functions that are critical to the success of your organization. Oh, wow. I just saw your question here. So HR is not in the value chain. Well, modern day practices in talent management have started incorporating HR into the value chain, because whether we like it or not, a good strategy is as good as the people that will drive that strategy. So if HR is not at the table to actually look for good people or good talents to come and drive the strategy that will drive the entire value chain, then you are not doing you are not doing a good job. So thank you very much for that. But the reason I didn't talk about it is that not all organizations actually see HR as part of the value chain, right? So not every organization sees it, but for a forward-thinking organization, the director of HR has to be a critical role. In fact, that role has to have at least 2 successors, an emergency successor and a successor that will be ready in the next 1 or 2 years. But we are still going to look at that probably in question and answer. So the next group of people that we want to focus on is roles or functions which are hard to fill due to their specialized nature. So for organizations that have lots of expatriates or technical roles, maybe the technical director for a manufacturing company. The technical director is the one that oversees the technical operations of your factories, from your machines, from your getting spare parts, the entire value chain of maintaining that factory too, because that factory too has a value chain. Everything is in fact, some will call value chain mapping, but that's another topic for another day. So maybe you have roles that are occupied by expatriates in your company, and for you to have an expatriate, it definitely means that role is a hard to fill role. So you must constantly be developing successors for those roles, because an expatriate can decide to carry his bag or a bag and go tomorrow and say, well, I'm tired of Nigeria. I'm no longer comfortable. I feel threatened. I'm going back to my country. So you might want to start focusing on them to look for successors or look for people that you want to say, okay, we want to use and succeed these people. So roles or functions which are hard to fill due to their specialized nature. And those are roles that are usually called technical roles. Then last but not the least is senior roles which are integral to your succession. So oftentimes we've seen situations where organizations crumble as a result of somebody in leadership probably resigning or dying. In fact, recently I was hearing that a top tier bank in Nigeria, their standard and quality of service has drastically reduced just because the CEO died and maybe the son took over, and the way the son has been managing the organization is very bad. That is a poor succession whatever in that organization, because it means that succession planning hasn't been done well. Because if it had been done well, a ready-made successor should have been found within the organization that is ready to step into that role immediately that person died suddenly or was buried, or probably the person might even resign. So these are the three categories you want to focus on and use your 9-box grid. Right? Okay. So moving on from there, the second thing we're going to be looking at is, or the second step is that we want to define performance criteria. So start by looking at how your organization assesses performance. And you need to find out if there are clear performance guidelines too, right? Okay. So when you're talking of performance criteria, you want to look at performance indicators or metrics. These things must be clear. There must be no ambiguity. And you also need to check if your performance process is subjective, because there's no room for subjectivity in 9-box grid. Everything is data-based. There's no, well, in some cases, there might be subjectivity, but the subjectivity has to eventually become objectivity. Because if one person says, oh, I feel this person is moderate potential, at least 3 to 5 people needs to agree that, oh, that person actually needs to, because subjectivity can't be uniform across. Like we say, 1 is a coincidence, 2 is not a coincidence anymore. It's now following a trend or a pattern. So even if there aren't any structured metrics, make sure to establish clear criteria to assess performance consistently and fairly. And these criteria should also integrate seamlessly into the performance measurement scale of your organization. Right? So the 9-box grid consists of 3 performance categories, which we've talked about earlier: low, moderate, and high. And this is the scale you use to score your employees during performance appraisal. So I have a brief diagrammatic representation here. So for example, let's say we want to look at low performance. What does low performance mean? So low performance basically talks about situation where employees fails to meet job requirements and misses targets, right? Then indicators include consistently fall short of monthly targets, regularly receives feedback for not meeting job duties. So when an employee is constantly being given feedback that, oh, you're not meeting your job target, you're not doing well on this job, then you might want to start considering that person as a low performer. Then also, moderate performance, the employee partially meets job demands and achieves some but not all objectives. Let's say they have 5 goals or 5 OKRs. They are only able to meet 2 within the entire year. They didn't meet 3, or they meet 3, they didn't meet 2. Then that person is a moderate performer. And indicators include they meet some deadline but misses others, proficient in some job skills but lacking in others. So this one is now talking about the skills to do a very good job in that particular role that we're talking about. Then the last one we are looking at is high performance. The employee fully meets the requirements of their job and their individual targets. Indicators include regularly exceed targets, demonstrate leadership skill, and takes initiative. So these are the criteria and the indicators for grouping employees into the 3 different performance categories for the performance criteria. So moving on from there, let's quickly look at potential. So like I said, potential is basically an employee's readiness, willingness, or capacity to do more than they are currently doing, right? And talking about that, we said, unlike performance, potential can be more abstract because you may not necessarily have objective data to measure somebody's readiness and willingness. But of course, there are still tools that you can use, like 360-degree feedback, line managers rating and assessment, and all what have you. So, but to use the potential effectively, you need to define and understand what potential looks like within the context of your organization. So it then means again that HR and some group of leaders still needs to come together and sit down to agree on what potential looks like, especially within the context of your organization. And that's why copy and paste is not advisable. You need to do the job. So you need to ask yourself, what does potential look like in my organization? The answer to that question will help you identify competencies or characteristics that can actually indicate if someone has the aptitude for growth, right? Or if they have the aptitude to even do more than they are currently doing. And once you've been able to identify the relevant qualities, there are actually two ways you can measure them: using standard psychometric tests or also developing your own assessment criteria. So in terms of using standardized psychometric tests, we have tools such as personality test, we have the DISC profile, we have the MBTI, we also have 360-degree feedback that you can also deploy. This will help ensure that your potential ratings or assessment for potential is fair, valid, and unbiased. These tools also provide objective insights into both competency potential and individual capabilities, allowing the results to be directly aligned with your organization's competency requirements. This is also very important because, as I was discussing with my Oga earlier, I am currently in the middle of designing the competency requirements and the framework for an entire organization. And when we talk about this, we actually look at people's ability to actually grow. Do you actually have you might be doing well in your current role, but do you have the latitude to take on more? It's like a Dunlop, a foam. Okay, it is full right now, but can it still take in more water, right? So because it is largely abstract, you need tools like this to give you objective data to measure whether somebody is actually able to take in more. Then developing your own criteria. So if you don't want to use any of the tools that I have mentioned, you can develop your own criteria by establishing your own assessment criteria, but make sure that there are at least 3 pieces of evidence to support each rating. So if you have rated somebody maybe low or high potential or moderate potential or high potential, there needs to be at least 3 to 5 people agreeing to that. And you can also avoid bias by using a systematic approach. Consistent questions, uniform data collection, and uniform analysis should be applied all throughout the group of employees you want to apply your 9-box grid tool to. And another thing about potential again is that you also want to look at your performance appraisal, because yes, performance appraisal can also be an indicator to how much potential employees have. And we can look at them in 3 areas. So low potential, the employee is working at full potential. For example, somebody within the trusted professional box, that person is already performing very well. But in terms of potential, they have not shown any willingness or readiness to show that, or motivation that they can improve. They're already at their maximum capacity. They have plateaued. So they can't do anything more than the current thing that you're currently doing. The moderate potential is the employee has been able to demonstrate on the job that they have potential to further develop within their current role in terms of performance, skills, or expertise. Another thing to show for moderate is their willingness to even learn. How many of them are willingly gone ahead to take their own learning seriously and probably explored learning endeavors outside what the organization has provided? So that can also be an indicator of somebody who has moderate potential. But employees that are generally categorized into high potential are employees who actually perform well beyond their expectations of their current position. and their responsibilities and laterally take on leadership roles. Like I said earlier, you don't need a title to be a leader. In fact, there's one key thing we look at when we are looking at high potential: your ability to get results through others, especially when you don't have the title. So we look at your level of influence, your level of persuasion and negotiation without conflict. How are you able to get results using other people when you don't even have the title? Right? Okay. So the last step is to validate and visualize data. So once you have gathered all your data, you've gathered the performance data, you've gathered the potential data for the 3 groups of people that I spoke about in the step 1, you can then now go ahead and scan for inconsistencies. Like I said earlier, typically, majority of your workforce should be within the core. These are your reliable performance. Like I said, I even gave a context. 55 to 70% of your employees should be within. So if you notice that maybe you're now having 30 or 35% of your workforce in the core, and you are having more employees being on the side of poor performance, then you might need to check your criteria for low performance. Maybe your criteria is too rigid or not fair. And also, if they are too much on this side on the right, where almost everybody has high, moderate to high performance, you also want to go and check again whether, so that's why you need to pay particular attention to flyers, which group I consistency most, and focus on them and adjust. Individual anomalies or trends within specific employee groups might hint at a larger issue or opportunities. So those larger issues might be that, maybe bias in the ratings, maybe the data that you collected were not correct, were not accurate, right? I might want to go back and check again and say, okay, do I want to reevaluate my criteria for performance, or do I want to reevaluate my criteria for potential? Finally, you can then now go to the visualization stage, start plotting the gathered data onto the 9-box grid. This will then give you an overview of your organization's talent landscape, right? So by then, you would have developed your own 9-box grid for your organization. You don't even need to do it with a lot of people, because the data in the 9-box grid is usually very, very confidential. It's not something you want to share with everybody. And that's why sometimes when calibration sessions are being held, talent review sessions are being held, it only probably just involves a few group of people, which includes the leaders, the HR director, and probably the head of talent management, or the learning and talent manager like myself, who will then come together and analyze these things for the entire organization. Moving on from there, I also have another thought-provoking statement here. And I've actually applied the Pareto principle to an organization's workforce. And according to the Pareto's principle, only 20% of employees, which we call the critical few, deliver 80% of the organization's results. And I'm sure the next question that will come to our mind is, so how do we know the 20% employees that are critical to delivering the 80%? And that is where the 9-box grid also comes into play. Because I'm sure people are like, what am I just talking about? Because the problem 9-box grid solves is that it ensures that it gives you an objective, visual, data-based representation of where you need to focus your developmental endeavors and your resources to. Because those 20%, you need to develop them and you need to engage them. Right? And that's why if you tell me that you're in talent management and you're not really doing anything in employee engagement, you've not really started talent management. Because it's not only just about developing people, you also need to keep them engaged as well. So moving on from here, I think I have another comment. Oh, yeah. I think the slides will be shared, but I'm not so sure. But it's just an assumption on my end. Hopefully the slide will be shared after the session. Okay, so let's move on from here. And the next thing we're going to be looking at is succession planning with the 9-box grid. So basically, what does succession planning even mean? So succession planning basically talks about finding adequate and good replacement for your leadership and critical roles. I made an analogy earlier on where I was able to identify the critical roles within a cereal manufacturing company, right? Okay, cool. So the first thing you want to do when you are planning, planning succession with 9-box grid is to focus on future leaders. So populate your succession pipeline with the employees that are within the star category. That is employee with high performance, high potential in top right. These employees should be prepared with leadership coaching, stretch projects, and mentoring. You can also go ahead and include employees that are within the stretch develop and also within the stretch segment as well, because these guys have been able to show that, oh, they have high potential and moderate performance, or high performance and moderate potential. Then some employees from the core as well. Those are the 4 segments where you want to pull your successors from, right? Then the next one is map roles to people. So like I said, identify key positions. How do you identify them? Identify the positions in the entire value chain. And we've also included HR. Someone also puts chief people officer, the CPO. The CPO or the CHRO should also be a key position within an organization that is important. So you need to have successors, because if the CHRO resigns halfway within the year, the HR strategy of the organization may nosedive. So you also need to have ready-made successors for those roles. So identify key positions and then map which high potential employees could fill them. If a critical box is empty, there is no internal candidate, that signals a hiring need, and this ensures you are ready when roles open up. In fact, you can also go into pipelining mode, where before that there's a vacancy in that role, you already have some candidates outside the organization that you can readily recruit into that role, right? You can also, well, we have the 6 B's of talent management, the borrow, buy, build. There are actually 6 of them. So any one of them you want to do to, because this is a key man risk. Anytime you have a role within your organization that there's no internal candidate to succeed, that is a key man risk, especially and the role is in your value chain. That poses a key man risk. So you need to employ any of the 6 B's. Borrow means, do you want to outsource or you want to get somebody from any of the consulting firms? I remember when one of our GFCs, Global Financial Controller, when I was at PZ, left abruptly, we had to get somebody from Ernst & Young to handle that role for like 3 months on contract basis before the person went back to their company. So you might want to borrow, you might want to buy. Buy basically means just recruiting someone else from another organization into that role. Build means look for somebody internally that you can use, but in this situation, there's no internal candidate, so building does not work. So you might want to just look at borrow or buying. There's no building here. So the next thing is that you want to also create talent pools. How do you create talent pools? Like I said, group employees into readiness categories. So for in talent management, employees do not have the same. So ideally, according to best practices, each key position should have at least 3 ready-made successors. But of course, these ready-made successors do not have the same readiness level. The first readiness level is emergency successor, which means if this person should die today or they resign tomorrow or they decide to japa, who is a ready-made successor that can enter that role? The first candidate on your succession pool in those group of 3 is your emergency successor, followed by the person that, 1 to 2 years, meaning that, after 1 to 2 years of development and stretching them, they can become ready for that role. Then we also have people in the 2 to 3 years readiness level, or even 3 to 5 years readiness level. So the readiness level will also determine what type of learning and development interventions you want to give to this person. Somebody cannot be in a 1 to 2 year readiness level and you're saying you want to send that person to Rome Business School or Lagos Business School for an 18-month program. Doesn't make any sense. That program can only be for somebody within the 2 to 3 years readiness level or 3 to 5 years readiness level, because you are also going to factor in the amount of time it will take for you to develop that person into a proper replacement. And like I said, these pools are not cast in stone. Some people might show readiness this time around. They might also be yanked off. Maybe they don't have the potential anymore. Okay. The last but not the least is regular talent reviews. So talent reviews are basically sessions that are organized within organizations to discuss about the 9-box grid and the employees within the 9-box grid. Also look at the different HR data that look at the effectiveness of the 9-box grid, such as retention rates and also competencies as well. So most times organizations begin their talent review or talent planning review sessions at the it usually starts at the beginning of another performance period or maybe financial year. Let me put it that way, because some organizations use financial year, some use calendar year as well. So because one of the key things you're looking at is we want to look at performance in the previous appraisal period or the previous performance period. And you want to look at, your 9-box grid, you want to look at the employees within the different talent pools, and you want to validate or revalidate. So that's what you're basically doing within a talent review session. Moving on from there, let's now quickly take a look at best practices and consideration. I just hope I'm still within the time. So best practices and considerations for the 9-box grid tool. Calibrate ratings. So before your talent review, ensure all managers agree on rating scales. That is, you want to you agree on what is low performance, what is low potential, what is moderate performance, what is moderate performance, what is high performance, what is high potential, right? So define what high performance means in concrete terms. So if the employee is in sales, do you want to agree that, okay, if they are able to meet these targets, this is what we are going to classify as high potential or moderate potential or low potential? If it is project quality, agree. Across the people that will be participating in those talent review sessions. So managers and leaders need to agree on the rating skills. They also need to agree on the leadership competencies. And that's why in an organization's competency framework, there should be something that is pointing to the leadership framework as well, because your leadership competencies will be embedded in your leadership framework and will also be embedded in your competency framework. So if say you have learning agility as a competency in your leadership framework, what that leadership agility is saying, the description and the behavioral indicators and the level of proficiency that has been validated should be seen in the people that you are considering as a high potential for leadership roles. It should be seen in them. Another best practice again is use multiple evaluators, and that's why you say you cannot do talent review in isolation. It's not only done in HR or talent management alone. You have to involve line managers, involve heads of departments, involve directors, and these guys will come and give you input into your process. So involve peers or a leadership panel in assigning boxes. Multiple perspectives reduce the effect of a single manager's bias. Like I said, if because me and my manager, we have very good rapport now, and he has decided to rate me 5 out of 5 on all the areas, and that means there's going to be problem. So another best practice, again, you need to talk about or consider is emphasize development. So treat the 9-box discussion as a development planning session and link each placement to a specific follow-up. So like I said, I've given examples of action plans that need to be carried out to manage employees within the different categories that we've talked about. So treat the 9-box discussion as a development planning session. Link each placement to a specific follow-up, coaching, job changes, job rotation, on the job learning or on the job training, and what have you, new goals. Then also avoid using it as purely a ranking tool, because if you're using it as a purely ranking tool, you might start to have what we call the the opposite of Dunning-Kruger effect. I've forgotten the name of that effect, the golem effect. Because if you already think that people are already bad hires or underperformers, and you are looking at them like that, that means your expectation of them will always be low as the HR manager or as the line manager. So in order to avoid the golem effect, don't treat people that are in those places as, oh, they are deadbeats, they are deadweights, they can't do it, because somebody who is a poor performer today might just become a star tomorrow. We never can tell. But then again, they can't be there in perpetuity. You need to create an action plan for them. Then moving on from that, consult stakeholders. Like I said, don't do 9-box grid in isolation. Involve managers, involve HR business partners, involve representative employees. I am a little bit reserved on involving employees because, like I said earlier on, the information in talent reviews and 9-box grid is a confidential information. Because if an employee knows, I must see my friend do, my office body he has been classified in bad hire, and the person leaves the talent review session and goes to tell their friend, it just furthermore affects their morale negatively. And that person just said, well, they've cuckoo said I'm a bad hire, so let me just keep being a bad hire or find a way to exit the organization, right? So but 100% I agree that managers and HR professionals and HR managers should be involved in talent review sessions. Then, well, this is the last thing which I've already talked on. Ensure data privacy. Handle the data and results from your 9-box grid with discretion. Take steps, proactive steps to protect your employees' data from being misused, and you only use it as a conversation guide. Right? Okay, then let's quickly look at the last one, but not the least, before we move into the other things. Test and refine. Test your 9-box grid with a smaller group to assess its effectiveness before rolling it out company-wide. Gather feedback to make necessary adjustments and improve. The adjustments might be in your performance criteria or in your potential criteria. So to ensure that you don't have people that are giving you biased information or biased data. So you need to constantly test and refine your 9-box grid. And you can start with a smaller group before you now apply it to the larger group of people that we've talked about. Common pitfalls. So the common pitfalls include subjectivity of potential. Because potential is an abstract entity, there is enough room for subjectivity. And that's why I said there's no objective test for potential. So it can be unreliable, but use it judiciously with evidence-based approach, e.g. past promotions. So in talent profile data now, we want to see your last promotion date. You have not been promoted in the last 5 years, and you are telling us that you have potential to grow. Because if you actually have that potential to grow, you should have been promoted within the last 5 years, or some even in the last 10 years. Because I've seen organizations where people stay on the same roof for probably 10 years and they say, oh, I'm willing to do more, but you have not even been promoted in the last 10 years. Then also, you also want to look at how they are able to adapt to challenges, right? So those are the things that can guide you and give you evidence to get objective data for potential. Then bias and fairness. Be aware that the 9-box can actually exacerbate bias. What we mean by exacerbate here is it might actually amplify bias, especially the halo and the on effects, or gender bias or race bias, especially when you're working in probably a male-dominated field. Maybe you are thinking, oh, this is a woman now. What can a woman, how can you promote a woman as head of manufacturing or director of manufacturing? Can a woman run the length of the factory? Can she put on helmet and boots for long periods of time? Those are biases. And these are conversations that will actually come up in talent review sessions where the 9-box tool will be used. So women and minorities often get rated lower on potential, even when performance is strong. So mitigate this by anonymizing data where possible and emphasizing inclusive criteria. Another beautiful thing I also advise here is the use of gender and gender KPIs or gender metrics. So in some organizations, they ensure that at least for their organization, 40% of their succession pool or high potentials are ladies, 60% males. Or some of them go as far as even 50-50. Do you understand? Such that when you know that there's a KPI guiding it, you will know that, oh, okay, we don't have to kick the women out or you don't have to keep minorities out. It also helps with the DEI agenda of the organization, diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. So moving on from there, negative labeling. Avoid hurtful descriptors or a fixed mindset culture. Giving someone a low potential label can demotivate them. So you need to stress that career paths can change with development and keep dialogue open. So the fact that you have low potential today does not mean you'll be there forever. Success is not final, failure is not fatal, according to Winston Churchill. So if you're an employee that you have been if an employee has been put into the low potential category, it can change in the next month or in the next quarter or in the next year. So you need to also stress that in those conversations. Then, not a firing order. Oftentimes, because you said create an exit plan for employees within certain segments, degree should not be automatically mean that somebody will be fired just because they fall in the lower left box. But they should just use it as a guide to guide conversations about support or transition. But follow HR due process for any actions. Like I said, even if you want to fire anybody, ensure that you have your documentation. So that if the person now says, oh, they want to take action against your organization at NICN, Nigerian Industrial Court, the National Industrial Court of Nigeria, you have enough evidence to back up, okay, oh, the person has performed poorly, person has also not improved after several interventions that has been applied, so that everybody can know that, okay, the person is truly not ready to just perform on the job. Okay, and the last but not the least is overconfidence in the grid. This one is common because even me, it has happened to me before, where I just feel like, oh, once you fall within a box, that is your current, that is where you are limited to. But remember, it's just a tool and not the whole story. Market changes and new skills emerge. And because of this, now we are seeing a lot of adoption of AI. And that has actually 10xing or even 100xing people's productivity on the job. But let's say somebody has been given a poor performer, maybe like say 3 years ago, and you're not willing to change it. And AI has come and it has actually improved the person's performance. What do you want to do? Because technology has come to actually help people on the job and with other things. So high potential can also change. You might actually be somebody who is an high potential, but maybe something just bad happened, maybe a bereavement, and the person just relapsed. And so one beautiful thing about this common pitfall is to regularly revisit and update the grid as business priorities evolve. And last but not the least, before we call it a day or an evening, the 9-box grid is actually a powerful tool for talent assessment, especially when it is combined with data-driven insights, right? And also to enhance the effectiveness of the 9-box grid, organizations should consider these metrics on the right side of the screen to ensure accurate and actionable insight. And these metrics are learning agility. And I've explained it earlier on. It is the ability to adapt and acquire news quickly. In fact, one of the criteria for promotion, in my own opinion, is that you should not just be promoted based on what you're currently doing. You should have also been able to demonstrate to us that you can do what is being done where you want to be promoted to. Right? So learning agility is very important, ability to adapt and acquire new skills quickly. And the reason it matters is because it is crucial for identifying future leaders who can excel in evolving roles. Another key metric that the 9-box grid can be combined with is employee engagement. So level of employee involvement and satisfaction. How willing are they ready to get themselves involved? Are they the people that, oh, if they don't push them to be involved in certain projects, they will not volunteer? Do you understand? High engagement correlates with better performance. That is very important. Like I said, from my experience, the number one factor of poor performance most of the time is employee disengagement. So if you have high engagement with an employee, it will most likely return in, it will show in performance and retention rate as well, and also team morale. Then collaboration scores. How are they able to collaborate with other people? Their influence, their ability to get results with others without necessarily having the title or the power. And this basically highlights employees who excel in cross-functional roles, employees that, I know there's one employee like that. When he goes to supply chain, he gets his thing done. When he goes to procurement, he's able to get somebody to help him do his thing very well there. And he goes to finance. So these are the things that point to how somebody's influence affect other things within the organization. And it also points to how they are able to seamlessly work with others across different projects. So that brings me to the end of the session. And this is my phone number for anybody who is willing to reach me for further questions. But if you have any questions at this point, now is the time to ask. I don't know if the moderator can open the floor now for questions. So, but in case you don't want to ask your question here, you can give me a call. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Omobolade Adigun on LinkedIn. You can also send me an email if you are comfortable with emails. My email and my contacts are also there on the screen. So I think, Mr. Ayemi, you can actually open the floor for questions now, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. This has been fantastic. Enjoyed every moment. I didn't expect anything less. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a few comments, reactions, contributions. Maybe you want to say one or two things that stood out for you in today's session. That's also something we'd like to hear. I'm checking to see if there are any hands up so that we can take any questions or comments, contributions, or what stood out for you in today's session. Maybe something you do differently starting from Monday. And also, we're checking the chat box. This has been a very enriching session. Thank you so much, Omobolade. This was
Thank you.
Class. Okay. All right. So I see that Madam Princess Ad is up. You have the floor, ma. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Omobolade. Thank you very much for that refreshing session. I'll call it a very technical session because it was quite technical from my perspective. It's a session that should not be done within the hours that you've done it. It should be like 3 different, sessions long. It's like you've just had to load everything into this little time that we have. So well done, sir. Very informative and very in-depth. I'm going to take a fight with you for telling us that you didn't have HR people as part of this thing that you are doing. HR is the soul of every business. I will tell you that. We are the engine room. Who are the people that are going to help you to do all of this, your hires that you're hiring? And that's why all your FCMG or whatever keep collapsing all the time, because you don't reckon with it. That's just on, on the fun side, really. But HR is the core of every business, the soul of every business. So I think, you have to be an advocate of that to let them know that HR is really important. Now, my thought is that I looked at all of those things that you did. It's very, very comprehensive. And I'm thinking, would it be good to say there are categories of organizations that this will fit into, and there are categories that they might not be able to fit into? So will there be like a step down for smaller organizations where they don't have to take in the whole, gamut in considering the use of it? That's true, because it's a tool. It's a tool that one uses, in an organization. So would you, how can we step it down to say, oh, if you're very large scale with X amount of staff, you can use, the full shebang. If you're medium, if you're this, and, is there something that, we can do? Because I can assure you that small scale industry might not be able to take this on. That's just what I was wondering. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. But in my own perspective, because according to my experience and also my research, we don't really have any size of organization that is too small to actually make use of the 9-box grid tool. But I understand your concerns, because in situations where you have organizations with less than 5 employees or less than 10 employees, we all have this type of one-man businesses here and there where the entire staff strength is not even up to maybe 10 or 20. How do you then make use of the 9-box tool? The beautiful thing about the 9-box tool is you may not necessarily use it for succession planning. You might just use it to just visualize your workforce. Let me even see where the core of my organization lies, right? Is it I just want to know whether my employees are within the core group, or whether they are within the observed dilemma, or where the observed effective, or they are trusted professionals. So yeah, you're correct. I hear you, in the sense that in organizations where they don't even have enough employees so the applicability of the 9-box tool is far beyond using it only for for succession planning. You can just use it to just visualize the workforce, and that's why I said the benefits. Like I said earlier, is used to identify talent within an organization. You can also use it as a visual format to just see where your employees are in terms of performance and potential. I hope I've been able to answer your question, madam.
Yes, you have, but you see, I'm looking at, again, like I said, I'm looking really at, you've gone to do facilitator training for, like you said, one-man business, total amount of staff, they're just growing, and you're trying to, help them navigate. And I would like to see a tool where you can say, oh, this set within this tool, or within this thing that you've showed us, so this set can be used to do this can be used for that, this can be used to, just like you've identified one thing now, that it does not have to be succession planning, it does not have to be this, but so where we can have, you can say, whilst you want to do this, if you want to do this type, or if this is what your target is, just use this will be useful for you. I would be able to, for a person, because I'm an experienced, maybe trainer or facilitator, I'll probably look at it and tease out what I feel will be most useful for whatever I need it for. However, this is it's a mentoring group. So we're just saying, let's try and see how we can allow those that we are mentoring to know how they can dig into it and make the best of it as they are growing.
Thank you so much, ma. Permit me to come in.
Thank you very much, madam.
Omobolade, let me respond.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, Madam Princess. So we did a session in Abuja 2 Saturdays ago.
Yes, I saw the flyer.
And I taught on HR strategy. I taught for like 20 minutes. It was a live session. And thankfully, we also recorded it and shared the recording. And it was completely free. Among the many feedback I got, there was one that stood out for me. The lady said when she was in the live session, she did not really understand what I was thinking and sharing. Then he listened to the same session, the recording, 2 times. And she now fully got it. She now came back to thank me. Anybody who thinks they didn't understand today, go and watch it again. Understanding is progressive. All right. So let's just leave it at that. Thank you so much, Madam Princess. Uncle K, you have the floor.
That's really my point. My point is for people to be able to understand it. I've totally forgot that, there's that recording. So please pardon me, but that was just me thinking, thank you.
All right, thank you. Fantastic presentation. As Princess said, very technical, and I've enjoyed every single bit of it. I'm glad that I joined tonight's session. The 9-box grid that you displayed to us tonight, very fantastic, and it was I could resonate with it because I could visualize some of my staff in each of those boxes. Right?
Exactly.
So it became really practical for me. Now I'm thinking now, how do I resolve a situation where I might say a certain staff is classified as probably moderate, delivery, and then potential moderate, something like that. And then the line manager or the head of department is saying, no, he's a high flyer, he has high potential. But me as HR, I'm looking at it. So how do I resolve that bias?
Fantastic. That problem is what the 360-degree feedback has solved for you, sir. Because performance is not in isolation. If you are performing well, your upline should be able to see it, your peers should be able to see it, your downline should be able to see it. So it is just, the only thing you're just going to do is to now create questions that will solve that conundrum that you have, and put those questions into the 360-degree feedback to say, oh, okay, do you think this employee, or how would you rate this employee in terms of performance on the job? Put a Likert scale, 1 to 5. If maybe 80% of the respondents say the person is an high performer or the person is a moderate performer, then that's your answer to the line manager. Do you understand me, sir? Uncle K?
I do.
Hello?
Yes. I understand you. Please go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I said the 360-degree feedback is a good tool that you can deploy to solve that problem, whereby you as the HR manager, you think an employee is a moderate performer, a moderate potential employee, but the line manager says, no, this is an high flyer. So, okay, no problem, it's fine. You can deploy a 360-degree feedback, and also in talent review session, get input from other members of your talent review committee or your talent review team to say that, oh, okay, we have this employee, especially get feedback from people that have had interactions with that employee, maybe as a senior colleague in another department, or as a peer, or as a manager of a peer or manager of a downline that the person has interacted with. So that is where you get the objective data you need to use to win over that line manager and say, Oga, your rating is not valid or fair, because you can't be saying this person is an high flyer and 5 people that have rated this person have said he's not a high flyer, but just a moderate power. Because oftentimes recency bias, maybe because the person is in sales and the person was just able to close a 500 million naira deal, or maybe bring in 50 customers within a short period of time. So that can be as a result of a recency bias. So I guess I've been able to answer your question, sir.
Thank you so much. We'll take the last comment from Grace, but just before that, so it just occurred to me to also mention this. So the HR mentorship platform caters for multiple tiers of HR professionals. We support both entry-level and veterans.
Yeah.
Across, and we do webinars across. So I can say that today's webinar is not necessarily entry-level. And now, of course, you can also pick it if you're entry level. But already on our YouTube channel, we have like 20 performance management, talent management webinars. If you watch 5 of them and then you come back to watch this one, it will sit better with a few people. So I'm saying this in case 1 or 2 people, you may need to go to more fundamental performance management, general mainstream topics. This is specialized because it is the 9-grid box model. It's a model. But thankfully, our Enable facilitator also showed us that the model does not have to be standalone. For example, he has multiple times linked it with 360 degrees. Okay, you can link it even to balance scorecard, depending on the context. But it assumes some basic, fundamental performance management understanding in general. We'll take the last 1 or 2. Okay, Chinoye, I think your hands were up before Grace. Please speak.
Yeah, I think
Grace. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Oluyemi. Good evening, Omobolade. Thank you very much. I think I joined the session midway or thereabouts, and I just wanted to speak on the 9-box grid. I know initially you mentioned that, it's for some key roles or for some key talents. And I think later when you were responding to Madam Princess, you kind of said, okay, that you can actually use it as you want to know the position of your employees at the
exactly.
time.
You don't necessarily need to use
Yes.
it as a succession planning tool.
Okay. Yeah, because what I wanted to mention was that where I worked previously, so we had an ERP and then we placed all our employees on the 9-box grid. However, we didn't stop there. We also had to further define the outcomes of, where the employees sit. So we had outcomes of, okay, this person needs to be promoted. Does this person need a job enlargement or enrichment?
Or a
Does this
salary
person need
review.
coaching? Yes, training and the rest. And then we
Exactly.
also had like an appraisal review committee, even after putting every employee in their position in the 9-box.
They will
We
still
also had,
review the appraisal. So that's your
yes, they still had
calibration
to,
team, a calibration
exactly.
committee. Yeah.
Exactly. So I wanted to just mention that is it compulsory that it must be for the key talents, because I worked in a place where we placed everybody on the 9-box grid, and believe me, when we're promoting and enriching jobs of these
It was only those
employees,
people that you focused on.
yes, and you could see the performance of the people. You could see that we made the right decision in either promoting or maybe redeploying them, or as the case may be. So I just needed to
Exactly.
point that out. Thank
Sure,
you very
sure.
much.
Like, let me just buttress that point. Like a famous person once said, he said, we believe in God, but everybody else must bring data. Data does not lie. And the 9-box grid tool sits on data. So even the potential that is abstract, you can still get data for it using 360-degree feedback, MBTI, or DISC, disk profile. If you're able to deploy disk, if your organization is able to afford the disk profile assessment and you deploy it, you will see your employees that are showing willingness and readiness to grow, the ones that it will be so glaring, everybody will see it. But let's just say in the absence of maybe budget for that kind of thing, what else do you want to use? You might just use the consensus. Okay, what is everybody saying? Oh, do we agree? Do you understand? Which will also not lie, because
Is it Omobolade's network or my own? Oh, okay. All right. So I guess his network may be down. So Grace, you can speak. Then we'll take Bukola.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mobalade, for that wonderful webinar or information. Now, coming to what Princess Busayo, correct? What Princess said. So, I think that the 9-box grid, for me, I might categorize it for very big organizations, like what Chinoere mentioned just now. In my organization, before I joined this organization, I worked with a consultant, and honestly, the 9-box grid was what worked for us then, because we are managing some multinationals. But here in my present organization, is not a very big one. Let me say a medium size or something like that. So I find it too enormous. So what I'm using is the 360 cycle for the performance evaluation. And then, but the challenge is that still with that 360 cycle performance evaluation, at the end of the day, after the evaluation after the data, the report, generating data and everything, then you push it to the person that will work with it. The next thing he will start questioning, why is this person like this? Sometimes you find a lot of bias on these managers, especially the top management staff, that will now finally decide to say, okay, this person, the promotion is approved or something. Meanwhile, the data is already speaking that this person is performing. You will see from the data that is generated, the report line, the downline, the upline, all of them saying the same thing about this same employee. Even sometimes I will even accede to it to say that I too, but at the end of the day, you find a lot of biases at the top to start asking questions on why do you want to promote this person, and at the end of the day, we'll just get stuck. So most times we don't implement what this performance evaluation data says. We will now start implementing the various views of this top management staff in my organization, which honestly, to me, is not really good for an HR person. So my question is, how do we navigate this kind of boat? How do we navigate this kind of issue and get the right things to be done?
So thank you so much, Grace. I would like to say that very good question, and I will suggest respectfully, in the interest of time, that you go to the YouTube channel. We have done sessions on how to manage C-suite. The question you have asked is not specific or exclusive to 9-box grid model. It speaks to any HR initiative and getting approval or getting buy-in. So we've done sessions around C-suite, around getting management buy-in. We've done sessions around political intelligence, emotional intelligence, and so on and so forth. Just go to the YouTube channel. When you watch them, you get. And you crack it. You have cracked it for all HR issues and programs. I hope you understand my response to you.
Sure, I do. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Grace. Last comments we'll take today, Bukola. Then I don't know if I know the facilitator is back. I will read one or two questions from the group. I don't know if you can still access the previous questions. Bukola Mercy, please.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Bukola.
All right, thank you for this interesting session tonight. All right, so I just wanted to ask about line managers that are also average or underperformers. And this is as a result of the fact that, well, for take for instance, small to medium organizations that they probably cannot do the buying. We talked about buying, and then they probably maybe built somebody within the team. They promoted somebody to occupy a managerial role, sort of, or a team lead position. But you find out that most of them, they are eager to, do the appraisal for their team members. But deep down within you, you know that some of their team members are way better than, the so-called line managers. So what would you advise in such cases? Because I've seen situations whereby indirectly team members are like a threat to their team leads due to the level of exposure, their skill set, their competencies, and the likes. So what would you advise in such situation?
Okay, thank you very much for your question, Bukola. And this is basically still speaking to handling biases in using the 9-box grid. And thank God I said earlier that during your talent review sessions, even though you are within a small or medium scale enterprise, your talent review session should not be done in isolation. So it shouldn't only just be the HR and the line manager of that person giving input. So the line manager, of course, is threatened based on your scenario that you have given. It's stressing that, oh, okay, this person below me is actually better than me or knows the job more than me, and as such, may not want to objectively rate the person well because he doesn't want the person to probably be promoted or elevated to his own level, or probably get to a level whereby they're not even telling him to go and employ that one. So, well, we don't naturally use 9-box grid as a firing tool or a firing order, basically. It's just used to visualize things and to plan for successors. So to cancel out all forms of biases, that is why a committee, a talent review committee, which usually includes the heads of departments, the number one man on each department. So if your department is using head hierarchy, maybe it's head of this, head of that, or it's director, ideally all the directors will become, or heads of department will become a member, because when it comes to employees within their team, they should have visibility on performance and potential of their team members. And that's why things like skip level meetings are organized. Because if you are a performer and your head of your department does not know you are a performer, then something is wrong. If you have high potential and the head of your department does not know that, oh, watch out for that guy, that Bukola girl, or that daily guy, watch out for him. Let us bring up his conversation during the next talent review session, or let us bring him up. Do you understand? Then something is wrong. So there's no form of bias a line manager wants to have that will survive using the 9-box grid tool, because it is using objective data. All forms of subjectivity has been cancelled out. I hope I've been able to answer that question clearly.
Thank you so much, Omobolade Adigun. This has been phenomenal. This is 3 sessions in one. Of course, we knew this when we arranged for this. Ladies and gentlemen, what we need to do now is that we need to rest and then come back again.
All right, sir. Exactly.
So, I would like us, if we are not too busy, please let's unmute and let's appreciate our facilitator for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
for
We
this wonderful
appreciate.
session. We appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Many
very
thanks.
much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bolade Adigun. You have actually fulfilled the promise you
Thank you
made
so
during
much, sir.
May
God
Hangout.
bless you. God bless
you.
you. This is really impactful. God bless
Thank
you
you.
for that impactful knowledge sharing session. God bless you, sir.
It was more than a master class.